Alright, this is going to be a weekly recap over the first week of November, which is November 1st to November 5th, and I had 7 trades, and this is actually the first time I had a 100% winning percentage. And I know that's probably not going to be something that's going to happen all the time. It's going to be kind of crazy to go for just 100% winning percentage. It's just straight up green, but it is nice that I had a 100% winning percentage because I traded 7 trades. I've had 100% winning percentages before, but does it really matter if it's only 2 or 4 trades? This one was kind of nice that I had 7, and my dollar gains were very small because I'm going to be doing this thing that I just started this week, which is trading with a dollar risk level much more closely. And right now my dollar risk level is $8. I added a new section that I trade accordingly to my dollar risk level, and then this section just calculates what my dollar risk level ultimately was. Sure, on some of these, like here I put close. Overall 42% of my trades actually were close enough to my dollar risk level, so I definitely have to improve there. I did have these 2 first trades that I literally could have doubled my size, and then I had some right here where I wasn't that far off, but I could have doubled my size pretty easily, and I would have been a lot closer to my dollar risk level, and that would have been a lot better. But yeah, just a lot of room for improvement, and I think I'm going to stick to my $8 risk level until I am trading these setups to the point that I am also getting nice percent gains. Some of these setups that I'm going to go over here offered a lot of opportunity to be super profitable, but I didn't actually be that profitable because I just didn't hold on to the setup well enough, as much as I should have. And that doesn't mean I should have held on to the setup longer, but I should have held on to the setup better. So I am going to be having these small amounts here, but still I should be having some nice big percent gains. Only one of them was in this case AABB, and that was a short setup. So until I start seeing that I'm trading consistent and also like really capitalizing on the setups that I get in, then I'll move the risk level to maybe something like $15, maybe 20. But just right now I'm going to stick with 8 until I'm really refining the patterns and making the most out of it, because my average percent gain was 2%. I can do better than that, and my size again is small, but on some of these, if I'm really close to the dollar risk level, I'm going to trade much larger. But yeah, and I am doing better holding setups longer. As you can see, my average time is 9 minutes. I did have one here that was half an hour, but I want to see that increase. I also want to see my average percent gain increase, and if I keep doing good in terms of winning percentage, I don't see why I can't size up later. But for right now, I'm going to take it easy. Only $22 up on the week. Again, just $1,600 of dollar volume, so that's not really that bad. I can do much better though. I've done better. A lot of good setups. Let's go over all of these trades one by one. Just 7 trades, and yeah, let's get started. So my first trade for the week was the first day of November, and that was a high day breakout with AABB. So let's look at AABB. Right here. So it was the 3rd green day, and this thing had a lot of room. It did have a crazy red day there, but super nice run up on the previous runner. Let's look at the first. Way back here, and my entry was 943, 1742. So 943 was actually right here, 1742. So just right about this level. What happened was that this thing was trading up here, had a dip. Some people call this a dip and rip. Well, I bought it right when it kind of broke out of that range right there, and I sold the next minute 944 at 1758. So let me go ahead and actually zoom in a little more. Yeah, so 943, which was back here, and then I sold the next minute 44, 1758, Yeah, so I didn't even sell that nicely here. It was a breakout, you know, it did do the thing there. It did put up, you know, like a higher low off of that breakout level, or if anything, it was right at it, so it was like a confirmed breakout. One more uptrend, it came back, and then it broke further, and then it broke just a little higher, and then it just came back to the same level. It seems like, no, actually slightly above it, holding VWAP. And this thing actually ran a lot more. It was super profitable this first day. As you can see, it got as high as 21, but I'm not trying to hold all the way back here, but I think a sell higher could have been very possible. Definitely a lot of room for improvement there. Here's just one example where I should have held on to the trade larger. And one thing I am considering for this week is that I might try selling in pieces, maybe half my position when I feel like it might be a potential top, and then maybe I'll do like a higher low off of my entry or whatever, and then after that I can try to sell into the next, ideally a higher high, and try to be more profitable. But that was one trade there with AABB. Let's look at HTZZ. First dip under VWAP, second day. Let's look at HTZZ for the first. Pretty monster move the second day, but I wasn't a part of that. Anyway, yeah, let's get to the first here. This was it. It doesn't really look that significant, but I liked it because it just looked like it had a lot of move in the beginning, because it was just so clean, this little downtrend here, and it is trying to do a run up. Let's go back to the first. You know, it is trying to do a nice run up from where it came from. So I was looking at it because it did have the volatility. Let me do something. I'll be right back. Alright, I am back. Just wanted to check up on something, and yeah. So this is a first dip under VWAP, second day. So in theory, this thing was having this nice first green day. This is the second green day. Nice spike in the morning, and then it downtrends under VWAP for the first time. So ideally, what a lot of these setups do is sometimes they do that drop under VWAP. It puts up a low, and then it breaks past VWAP. Maybe it makes a double top from the previous range, or maybe a higher high, and then it heads back down, and then it gets under VWAP again, but then it's higher than this one, and it just continues maybe 3 or 4 times, sometimes the whole entire day. And sometimes it stops putting up higher lows. It just goes like almost diagonally towards the top, and then that's when you really want to take a sell. But this was the first one, and it actually failed because it didn't actually continue to do something like that the rest of the day. But I was here for this setup, and it is a higher priced OTC, so it's not an exact science, but it did do some nice moves the day afterwards, kind of following the same idea. But my entry was at 33.09, and that was 10.04. So 10.04 was right here, this green candle, 33.09. So the top of this green candle, I thought this thing was going to be super quick. It actually took a long time. So when I saw it doing this price action, it had a wick. There was a lot of people supporting it at 33. I thought, okay, this green candles here is looking nice. Maybe it's going to actually start doing it now. What happened is that it took a while for it to go through, and I did sell at 10 minutes later, give or take. 10:15, 33.46. Right? Yeah, 10:15. Sorry. Yeah. I'm not sure if I said that right. 33.46. I almost top ticked it. I almost got the very top. So again, I was in at right here, and I sold right here. That was ultimately all it was able to do that day, but it did make some moves the other day that was super nice, super profitable. But that was my trade setup there, and my risk level, I believe, was if it were to have broken under the wick. Yeah, 32.82, and according to where I was in and everything, I should have probably at some point doubled my size, just so I could have been just a little more closer to my dollar risk level. But in this case, I could have even have went 30 shares. I could have went 3 times the size that I was in, and that would have been a lot more profitable too. But I at least traded it, and that was my first time really trying to get into dollar risk level averaging, and it was kind of weird the way it traded. I didn't like how long it was taking. I didn't like how the top, as you can tell, was like 33.05, where there was like a lot of people that were just selling at like so many people was at 33.10, right? But all the prints were going through 33.05. It eventually made the move, and I'm happy I did sell it where it was, because it did fail later. But again, very similar to this day. Although this one's a bit exaggerated, right? This one didn't have the spike, but I think it was up more. No, it was about the same. Yeah, this is just a weird example of one where it kind of worked out and was like a little too much. I would have liked it, like I said previously, if it put up higher lows, but this is one where it broke past VWAP. It did do a sketchy wick here, and then it just shot up in the air with that news they had with Tesla. So that's kind of crazy, but I'm very happy with my trade there. I just should have been 3 times the size. As you can see, I was only risking $2.70 if it were to have broken 33 and I take a sell at the bid, and it goes through at 32.82, give or take. So definitely I should have went a lot larger there. The next setup is AABB, 4th day short, 2 gap ups. So this is just me shorting a very classic penny stocking framework setup. In this one, I was pretty close to my $8 risk, so that was pretty good in that I traded accordingly, which actually meant I traded a small size, but I didn't mind that at all. Let's look at AABB for the second. So the second was this big red day, this massacre day. And let's find the second here. Yeah, just crazy. You can just tell. What I really liked about this setup is that it was the 4th day. It had 2 massive, at least to me massive, like at least 9% gap ups. So it had gap ups. It's a former runner. It's promoted, right? It's not the 3rd day. It's the 4th day. And we did get like this lower high off of this range right here. My short setup was at 10:16 a.m. 26,312. Let me go ahead and actually just highlight it to bring it a bit closer. 10:6. Actually, that's a bit too close. Let's do it from here. That's better. 10:16 was my short right here, and that was 26.32, I believe. So give or take right about here at 10:16. And the only thing I should have done better in this setup, as you can see, it was inverse head and shoulders, shoulder, head, shoulder, and I thought it was done, right? I thought it was going to be all it was going to do right about here, and then I thought it was going to be the end. I should have been a little more patient, but I was trying to avoid something where I don't get short and then it starts downtrending, and then I'm in at a really unideal price. But it did actually play out, shoulder, head, shoulder, but just a little. It even put up a higher low, but we still had that ceiling there at 27, and then it just started to head back, not really try to uptrend or hit the highs anymore, and that's when it broke under, and it was a really nice move. I was short here, and I was risking that potential that it breaks the day high and it still has a lot of room to uptrend. So that was my risk level, give or take 29 with slippage. And my cover was a lot later. This is a setup I held for 33 minutes, 10:50 at 243. Right here, I remembered. 243 was right here, right about there was my cover, because it felt like it was actually going to potentially bottom there, and that totally was the case. And it didn't really put up any highs. It just tried to hold itself there, and then it ultimately failed, and it put up just a really nice downtrend throughout the entire day. My cover was right here. A bit of an opportunity to consider the bounces, but I wasn't that interested. You can see inverse head and shoulders here, shoulder, head, shoulder. But as you can see, the range wasn't nice. It went from 22, best case, to 23. The range wasn't really there. What was there was that opportunity to be short for a long time. But I'm actually very happy with where I covered, because it was at the bottom of this range here, and there was always that possibility that it might just consolidate, put up higher lows, and try to make a move towards the upside later and keep running for more days. But this one absolutely failed. There are some cases where these things can fall even harder than this, but this was still a nice, really massive downtrend as it got to as low as 16, right? And I covered here at 24, being shorts way up here in the 26s. So I like the setup. Definitely a big yes, because it had more than a 15% profitability in terms of the percent move. I felt like I traded well with what I did, and I actually was pretty close to my dollar risk level, which was a day high. For all the reasons that I mentioned, just a former runner OTC, 4th day, and like 2 big gap ups that were pretty significant. I was really happy with this setup right here. AABB was another trade. As you can see, I traded it 2 more times after that short. This was a long setup. Maybe I'm being picky. Let me capitalize that. I was in AABB the 3rd, so the next day. Inverse head and shoulder, second higher low, so let's look at that. That was the 3rd right here. Let's get out of here. And let's try to zoom in and get the entire day. And I think my entry was right back here. My entry was 954. 1755. Yeah, let's actually do it from here, but I just want to know this was the top right here. It did downtrend a little, not too much. 954 was right here. 1755, right exactly there. So this was one where I actually could have been long right here and right here, but I was kind of hesitating. I think in the future, as long as I have my dollar risk level and it looks like it's trying to hold itself, I'll be more quick to jump in. But this was a setup right here. This was a setup right here. Both of these things I could have traded, but I just don't like the way AABB is trading sometimes. But the setup that I'm interested in that I actually took was this. You can see here, shoulder, head, shoulder, inverse head and shoulders. And then this is ideally the second higher low. And sometimes they can try to rebound, especially after that big red day it had the other day. It wasn't really the case here. It did kind of uptrend, and at least as of now, it's trying to make a move towards the upside again. But again, my entry was right here. Let me just zoom in even more. Right about here was my entry, 1755, and my exit was... Okay, so this was a 7-minute trade. I got out 10:02, 1762. So right here, 10:02, 1762. So right about here was my sell. My entry was here. I just didn't like the price action. VWAP was the goal at 18. It kind of did it. It did have a few prints above 18, but the way it was trading with a large spread, it was just so nasty the way it was trading. I felt like maybe it will actually work, but in this case, I'm just going to probably get out in the event that it won't, because it probably won't because of how horribly it was trading. And I was right, and I did get out. I still got out profitably, although, just 65 cents richer from that trade. But, yeah, definitely not a bad setup. Could have been much worse, but, and I was pretty much close to my dollar risk level. Maybe I could have traded 2,000 shares. No, that probably would have been too much. I wasn't going to trade like a weird number like 1,500. I'm very happy with this, the size that I took there. The setup kind of worked because it did get to 18. It's not like it just absolutely fell off a cliff and failed. It did actually rebound and touch that 18 level, but it didn't do it nicely. It did lose momentum. That was still a pretty good trade. This is one that actually didn't, offer much opportunity. So I actually did well trading this one. But again, there are some of these where it could have been a lot more profitable in terms of how much it moved. And let's go ahead and look at AABB. Again, another trade. This is a morning panic bounce play for the 4th. So let's go ahead and look at the 4th. Alright, that looks kind of silly. Let me do it from a further level. Yeah, just the day before right here. right about here. I'm surprised I traded it by how ugly that looks. Let's go ahead and look at the morning panic bounce play. I was in at 935, 1625. So let's just go ahead and highlight from here. It didn't really do much the rest of the day after I got to that price level, but as you can see, it is having a downtrend and it is looking a bit nice, you know. And I did get in at a killer entry. Let me actually just zoom in a little more since it still kind of looks weird. That's a lot better. I was in again at 935, 1625 right here. Yeah, this was a pretty killer entry, honestly. It did have that nice downtrend from right 17, almost 18, pretty much 18, and I got as low as 16, and I was in right here 16, right about there, 1624, 1625. My sell was a minute and 49 seconds later, 937, 16469 right here, 16469, so basically 1647. My buy was here, my sell was right here. I really just didn't like it, you know, especially how I was trading the other day. You know, I was thinking maybe this thing has more room on the downside, and you know, I did try to hold this level here, had that nice yuppie push, and then they brought it all the way back down, and then they broke the level, and it started playing off of this 16 level, and I was in it right here because I thought there was a level 2 reversal, which was true. But then I just really hated how we had this candle here go all the way to 1668, then it came all the way back, and I thought, dude, this thing could break this level. It just tried to regain, and then it's gonna head on the downside and maybe even break the day low or just be a chop fest. So I got out, but it actually continued the run. It did get as high as, I don't really know if I should count the wick, 1748, but it did get to 17, and that was on the bid, so that could have been possible. Let's just see what a sell at 17 could have been. Yeah, here's an example where, you know, I could have been a lot more profitable percent-wise. This one did offer some opportunity, and I think what I can try to do in the future is that if it feels like it's doing this on a morning panic bounce play, I might try to sell half of my size, and then maybe, you know, it will head back to the bottom and break the level, and then I cut losses quickly. Then I regret not selling everything up here, but you know, in this case I could have sold maybe half, and then it did get to that VWAP goal at 16.8. It even got to 17. I didn't do much more than that. I was interested in this when it started to come back, but I hated the way it traded. But it did do that breakout there, and you know, there's plenty of opportunity. I just don't like how AABB has been trading, but you know, that was a setup there, and I could have went larger too, just a little more. 3,000 shares, eh? Just reading my notes right here. Yeah, that would have been a much closer to my dollar risk level. And then if I saw that VWAP, which was 16.8, you know, understanding that it did get to 17 pretty easily, yeah, that would have been pretty cool too, and that would have been with a lot less risks. So definitely a lot of room for improvement. Another reason why I think I'm going to just stick to that $8 risk level until I get better at these setups. IOUS is the 4th of November. This trade was a higher low towards high and day breakout. Alright, let's look at ILUS. Right about here is the 4th. Yeah, it's definitely heading towards the highs on this day, and it could have done it, and it did kind of touch it, you know, on Friday, but you know, this thing is just something in the making. It could obviously do something super nice, but let's just go ahead and look at the setup that I was interested in. My entry was 935, 45.5. Let's zoom in a bit closer. 935 right here, and my entry was 455. So right here, right, 45.5. Yep, 45.5. Wow, I'm actually surprised. Did I really take it that? I don't feel like I would have traded something like this. Maybe 44.5. On the 4th. I'm gonna take a look and just make sure I got this trade right. I feel like I got the date wrong or something. I'm gonna make an update later. Let me just take a look and make sure this is right. Alright, I am back. I resolved the issue. I had the hours wrong, so I did have like the day and everything, but just going back to my trade, which is right here with ILUS. I accidentally recorded the times for this AABB trade, so that's why it didn't really make sense. I didn't see a pattern that I would have traded. It was 10:36 and I got out at 10:39, as you can see right here. Now that we have that figured out, let's go ahead and look at it. So that was a bit later, right about here at 10:36. So right here, this is the, yeah, I remember this now. This was my entry here. So as you can see, this thing is potentially going to break this level right here and do some nice moves. It had this uptrend, it goes under VWAP, and then it comes back, puts up, you know, higher lows. So, you know, here is higher from here, and then here, higher from here, and then here is higher from here. And it does have a top, right? It might try to, you know, make a move towards the top, and it's going to fail. But at least right now, it looks like it has potential, and this thing is above VWAP. Some of these do transition from dipping under VWAP to holding VWAP and then floating above it, and then offering even more moves towards the upside. So I was in this right here at 10:36.455, and I was just trying to see if this thing could break out, and it did, but very quickly, and that kind of made me not hold this trade as well as I could have. I sold at 10:39 at 4615. So 10:39. Okay, so it was actually this candle right here at the bottom of this red candle. Again, I was in right here and I sold right here. Yeah, this thing had more room for improvement. Another example where I could have just held, and it would have been iffy because it did put up like a top, right? And this would have been a super long hold. But, you know, I could have then maybe tried selling at 47. And that would have been so bad. That would have been a lot higher than my entry. Not my entry, my exit. Right? Yeah, that would have been a lot more percent-wise. Yeah, another setup where I had more room for improvement. Now, it wasn't that amazing because it did put up that wall right at 47. Yeah, 47.3-ish. Plenty of time to sell at 47, I believe. But I believe this one did uptrend a little more. It almost got to 48. And let's just zoom back to the 4th right here. Yeah, my entry was right here. My sell was right here. It did hold this upper range. It did even get to 48, almost 48. It actually did downtrend later, but it came back. It put up like a sketchy inverse head and shoulders. Shoulder, head, and then a shoulder here. That would have went from 44 to 45, and then this would not have been ideal, but it was at least a double bottom, and then it put up a higher low. That would have been kind of hard to trade, honestly. Yeah, I probably just could have held this thing a lot better. I barely gave it 3 minutes on something that ideally is just breaking out the high of the day, which would have been super nice to hold longer. Even if I were to have sold at the bottom of this range at 4656, that still would have been a lot nicer than my sell. Just a little nicer, but still I would have felt better because I just held on to the setup and gave it more time. But yeah, here was another example, and I should have went looks like a larger size too. So if I were to sell at 4656, not that, right? Clearly I have a lot of room for improvement in these setups, which is fine, and I'm glad I get to review it and see what I can do better. But yeah, definitely could have went larger here. It could have held better. And again, if I start seeing that I'm doing better with these setups in terms of holding better, I will be considering moving that dollar risk level. But for now, I just want to master these patterns really with the size and dollar risk level that I'm trading. This is the last trade, RGBP. This is a confirmed breakout in the afternoon. Let's look at RGBP for the 5th. This one had a long run up, as you can tell, and I think it ran even further back, but it's trying to make a move towards the upside. It really is. You know, it did hit this bottom range here, and it is trying to make a move. Let's go ahead and highlight it, which is right here. Nice uptrend. My entry was 136. I held this one not bad. Not bad. I kind of held on to it for a pretty cool time. 136.20 at 26. So right about here. Right here. 27. This is the high of the day. It broke past it right here, and then it went all the way back to that original breakout level, and then it uptrends from there. That's a confirmed breakout. That's what I like to call it. I was in it right here, and it actually did jump on air. And I've had the opposite where I miss a trade because it jumps on air. I think it was the same day as this one, but yeah, this thing did have that little uptrend, and I just kind of got thrown off. And I thought, well, gee, maybe it's not going to do that much more, maybe not. I can't really zoom in much closer. I guess from right here wouldn't be too bad, but I was just kind of chicken with the setup. I didn't give it as much time as I could have. Here's an example where I could have tried selling in pieces. I did sell, at least I held it for a while, 146, not 1046. I sold at 273. So let's look at 273. For 146, right about here was the time. 273 was my sell. Again, my entry was right here, and then my sell was right about there. It did eventually break 27, which was super nice, and it got to 28. This wouldn't have been that bad. And then I have that downtrend here, but because I was risking 26, which was a pretty nice distance, I would have probably still been in the trade, although I would have been salty, and I would have likely have sold when it started to bounce back. It did close nicely at 297, so almost 30, but I wouldn't have been interested in holding these things overnight. I'm not really there yet to just hold setups, especially this one over the weekend, but that was a setup again. I was in here right before I made the move, and I sold right about here, you know, not really giving it that much time. Just in theory, what a sell at 28 would have been, because, you know, I do like selling at the highs, but sometimes I just run out of patience, and then, you know, I feel like it might top out where I'm at, and it's not going to uptrend and make a move towards the highs, so then I sell everything. But this one actually worked out, and this is an example where I could have tried selling half, and then I would have made it a lot nicer. But let's just see what a sell at 28 would have been. Yeah, that would have been a lot nicer percent wise. Again, another example where I could have just held a little more. You know, even if I were to have been in this downtrend, I would have tried to resell it. Plenty of time to still sell for above where I actually sold to. Yeah, just a lot of room for improvement. I'm going to say it one more time. I don't want to sound like a dead record. I'm going to stick to my $8 risk level until I'm actually seeing that I'm getting nice percent gains, not like these little baby 1% moves. You know, I want to see more in the 3s, 4s, and 5s, and maybe even above 10 if I do really good. And once I can start seeing that, I'm going to go ahead and then consider a larger size. I need to get closer to my dollar risk level on some of these setups. I'll try to keep doing better, and some of these are really quick setups, but if it honestly doesn't give me the time to do my dollar risk level and figure out how many shares I should be in, it's probably not a setup I should take anyway. 22 bucks with $1,600 of dollar volume traded. A lot of room for improvement, but I'm pretty happy. This was my first week where I actually, you know, traded with a dollar risk level in mind, even though I didn't trade it perfectly in some of these. Really cool winning percentage, although I'm sure I'll have a red day someday, but let's just hope that red day isn't a big red day compared to the others. A lot of room for improvement, but I'm happy to do this weekly recap.